And after sensual desire, the second hindrance is ill will or malice. So this is a mind of anger, or it could be a mind of jealousy too, that wishes to inflict harm on somebody else. Yeah, so it could be the wish to harm them physically, or the wish, beating them up or so on, the wish to harm them verbally by what we say, or the wish to harm them mentally simply by dwelling on a lot of judgmental, critical thoughts. So we can have a whole meditation session devoted to ill will. Yeah, I don't know if you've noticed that you might think of something someone said to you 5 minutes ago, or even 5 years ago, or even 50 years ago, and it is fresh in your mind and you're mad about it. And not just mad, but you want that person to have a taste of their own medicine for their own benefit. Yeah, so that they'll learn a lesson and they won't create any more negative karma like this, right? And so we can spend a whole session just going round and around about, what we want to say to this person, what we want to do to them. Yeah, it's ruminating, basically. Yeah, just ruminating. And involves holding on to grudges. Yeah, so somebody did something we don't like, and we can't forget it. We can't let it go. We hang on to it. Yeah, as if it's so important and so meaningful. Sometimes even the other person has died, but we're still holding a grudge against them for something they did a long time ago. And so we hold this malice in our mind very closely, very tightly, and even we can develop a victim mentality about it. I am the person who was abused by XYZ. Therefore, I'm angry at XYZ. Therefore, my malice, my ill will, my bitterness, my bad mood, my temper, all is justified because of what this person did to me before. And I want to get even. Yeah, so it's our very strange idea of justice. Yeah, of, you threw sand at me in the play box, so I'm entitled to throw sand back at you in the play box. As if that's going to stop the quarrel. Yeah. As we've all experienced innumerable times in our life, somebody does something to us, we retaliate. Does it stop there? Does the other person say, oh, yes, you're right after all? They might simply out of fear say that, but they don't really mean it. And they're going to get back at us sometime or another because we trounce them. But most people won't. Some people surrender like that. Most people won't. And what happens? They retaliate to us one more time. And then we do it to them, and they do it to us. And we do it to them, and they do it to us. And that's what you call living happily ever after. Yeah? It comes from holding on to a very strong sense of I that doesn't want to cut anybody any slack. know, I'm right. I always have to be right. I'm going to win this argument. Even if I'm wrong, I'm still going to win the argument. Because I've got to come out on top. So when I said we can spend a whole meditation session on this, I've done this quite a few times myself. Sitting in perfect meditation posture, thinking of something someone did to me at some time ago, that usually I'm the only person on the planet who is upset about this event. Yeah. Of course, in my mind, it's the national catastrophe. But when I really step back and look at it, I'm the only person that's really involved and upset about this. But I'm really upset, and I think about it, and think about it, and think about it. Play what they said or did to me over and over and over. They said it once. I do it to myself many times by remembering it and replaying it. And then thinking of what I'm going to do to get even. Oh, I could do this, I could do that. And then we have perfect visualization. Because we visualize ourselves saying these things, doing these things. Crystal clear visualization. No distraction. We're not falling asleep. Yeah? True or not true? Have you had these kind of meditations? Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? You know, and so fixated. And does this bring happiness? Yeah. When there's malice in our mind, are we happy? We're miserable. We think as soon as I get even, then I'll be happy. But if you just reflect for a moment, what kind of person am I that takes delight in making other people suffer? Then, if you reflect on that, does the thought of getting even really make you happy? Doesn't, does it? Because we're just sitting there, what kind of person am I that I rejoice in doing this? Okay, so ill will is not only a hindrance to developing serenity, it's a hindrance to creating good karma for a good rebirth. It's a hindrance to have a happy life even this lifetime. Yeah, and so the real person that is getting damaged through our ill will is not the person we're mad at. It's us. Yeah, we're the chief person we're harming when we hold on to a grudge. True, isn't it? It's true. And yet we hold on to those grudges so, you know. Okay? So then the question comes, how do we work with that? Yeah. So for all these kind of hindrances, then the Buddha also taught antidotes to them. So for the one of sensual attachment, he taught contemplating impermanence, contemplating the disadvantages of attachment, what attachment makes us do, how it spins us around. And for ill will, the antidote is cultivating loving kindness, and cultivating fortitude. So loving kindness is an attitude that wishes others well. Fortitude is a mind that can endure suffering. And that, so here it's the suffering of what the other person did to us. Or fortitude is also a mind that doesn't doesn't freak out with anger, that doesn't feel the need to return tit for tat. Mm. So, it's interesting how the antidotes are usually the exact opposite of what we want to do at the moment the affliction is in our mind, which is why they're the antidote to that affliction. Okay, so when we're really angry and cultivating malice in our mind, the idea of having loving kindness for the other person seems a million miles away. How could I ever have loving kindness for that person who did da 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 da? And we start again on ruminating and listing everything they did to us, which leads us again to think of everything we want to do to them. And then the thought pops up again, I'm suffering doing this. Maybe I should try and cultivate the antidote, loving kindness. But they did this and this and this and this and this to me. And, anybody in their right mind would hate them. And how can I forgive them if I let this go? I'm such a coward. I'm such a jerk, I really have to put a stop to this and, set down the law and take control of the situation. Mm-hmm. As if we have any control even of our own mind. Okay. So how do you cultivate an attitude of loving kindness for this person that, you're so intent on harming? Okay. Well, one thing, I find it very helpful for me to think, what kind of person am I that I want to cause harm, that I take delight in causing harm? Now, somebody might say, oh, you're shaming yourself. Well, yes, but I think in this situation, it's a good kind of shaming myself because it's based on my having a sense of my own integrity, and I'm going against my own integrity. Okay, there's two kinds of shame. Yeah, there's the shame of I'm a defective person and nothing's going to remedy it. But I'm not talking about that kind of shame. There's the other sense of shame, which is, I can do better than this. Yeah? I'm a worthwhile person and I can do better than this, and I want to do better than this. So I find that for me, remembering that helps me to turn the corner. Yeah? And see, yeah, I can and do want to do better than this. Now, why should I have an attitude of loving kindness towards this person who's a big beep, 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 beep? Okay, why? Well, what harm does it do to have an attitude of loving kindness? At first our mind goes, oh, I can never do that. But what harm does it do to have an attitude of loving kindness towards the person? Well, if I have loving kindness, then they'll continue to manipulate me and take advantage of me. No, loving kindness doesn't mean you allow people to manipulate and take advantage of you. That's not the definition of loving kindness. Okay. definition of loving kindness is wishing somebody to have happiness and its causes. Now, wouldn't it actually be better if this person that I find so disagreeable had happiness and its causes? Maybe not finding happiness through how they want to find happiness, which is by harming me or doing things that are unethical. But what about if they were truly happy and peaceful in their own mind, so that they didn't want to harm anybody else, and so that they had no motivation to do the actions that I find, either despicable or inappropriate? Yeah. So I've been trying all course to not talk about the election, but I'm going to fail. Okay. Imagine Donald Trump being happy. Okay. He's not a very happy person, is he? Yeah. When you look at him, he's angry. Yeah. Happy people don't need to criticize others and blame others and make accusations that aren't true. Yeah. He is quite an unhappy person. You're smiling.
I told Terry and Pam, I said, she's going to talk politics when we get here. Not going to do it. I said, yes, she is.
Yeah, but he's such a good example, isn't he? I mean, I used to use George W. and I can't, and actually I've changed my opinion of him in comparison. Yeah. But, I just look at Trump and what an unhappy person who has to be in the limelight all the time. What kind of suffering is that? That you need to have all the attention all the time. Yeah? So imagine if he could be peaceful and have a sense of fulfillment and a kind heart that doesn't feel threatened. I mean, he'd be a whole different person, wouldn't he? Yeah. Now, some of you may like Trump, in which case you can meditate this way for Hillary. Yeah? Because she's also somebody who's suffering. Yeah? And wouldn't it be nice if she were happy? Yeah? So, to be able to look at different people and really envision them not behaving like they're behaving now, but how they would be if they had internal peace. And then it becomes possible to wish that they have that kind of internal peace. Mm-hmm. So, the different chanting that you did the chanting, right? Yesterday and today. So, when I do the chanting, I always imagine, the whole U.S. Congress around me, this dysfunctional U.S. Congress that can't do anything except quarrel. I visualize them all around me, and Hillary on one side, and Donnie on the other side, and we're all bowing to the Buddha. Yeah, and it's a great visualization. Yeah, sometimes I put Putin in there too. Yeah, and all the Brexit people, they go in that as well. a sod. You put everybody in it. And everybody's bowing to the Buddha with a peaceful mind that has faith. And it's amazing to even visualize some of these people, the possibility of some of these people having virtuous mental states like that. But hey, if we can't visualize it, it's never going to happen. So we try and wish them well in that way. Okay, and at the least, it helps our mind. Mm-hmm. So the time to deal with these grudges and this malice that we've been lugging along with us for a long time is now. Not to wait until we're dying. I'm going to hate them until right before they die, and then I'll forgive them. That doesn't make much sense. Okay? Or right before I die, as if we're going to have plenty of time before we die. The time to let go of these grudges and to forgive is right now. There's no other time, really. So, when you hear something in your mind shouting, "No!" then just stop and say, what's happening? Yeah? What would I need to be able to say yes to wishing this person to be a totally different person who's a contented, peaceful, satisfied person? And then we'll start to look, what do I really need? Yeah. So we think what we need is an apology. Yeah. If they only apologized, I want somebody else to acknowledge my suffering. Yeah. They need to apologize. But to me, having somebody else apologize is similar to wanting to have a good reputation. What does it actually do for me? Yeah. How does somebody else acknowledging my suffering help me? How do you think it helps you? Well, what do you say? How do you think it helps you? Somebody who harmed you 10, 20 years ago, 10, 20 days ago, how does their apology and acknowledging your suffering help you? We win?
Well, that's your feeling. If they apologize, then they admit it, I'm right, I won.
Yeah, okay. I'm right, I won. Yeah. They're not stepping on me. Yeah. How else? What else do we think we benefit?
I think from that would be actually the wish of connection, but it's misinterpreted.
Yeah.
Want to connect.
Maybe actually underneath it all is there's a wish for connection. Yeah. And I think you're right there. We want some kind of connection, and we don't know how to start it. So how can it get started? I don't know what to do, so they have to apologize. But maybe we can think a little bit harder about what can we do to have some connection to that person. Yeah. Instead of just saying, there's nothing to do, They have to make the first step.
Can you repeat your question exactly?
Yeah, why My question is, why do we think, how do we think their apologizing will benefit us? Why is it that we think they're apologizing? How would it help us? And she's saying that we're really seeking some connection with the person. We don't know what to do. So their apologizing opens the door maybe for having a conversation. But we can't make them apologize, can we?
But I think they're already helping us by not saying anything,
Mm.
just by their action. I remember 2-3 years ago we did a Vajrasattva, we were over there,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a lady there that I was really triggered, and it was quite difficult, and it helped me to go way when I was young and being bullied and how I felt.
Mm-hmm.
Because I felt that I was wanting to retaliate, right? And it brought me to that place how painful it is receiving that. And I was seeing wanting to do it and even doing it, but not consciously, but by habits, right? And she was a savior for me to be able to go there and touch that that pain
Mm-hmm.
that I protected by acting myself like a bully. So that was really eye-opening.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is good. So you're saying that when somebody harms us, it's very helpful to look inside ourselves and see maybe what patterns we have of being harmed in that way and how we have developed a very concrete response to that harm, and that response keeps us entrapped. And so you're saying by somebody doing that to you, instead of just becoming reactive and acting out your old pattern, she helps you by helping you become more conscious of what that pattern was.
She truly opened my heart.
Yeah, she opened your heart.
She did.
Okay. So you're saying actually that that we can make the connection with the person who harmed us in our heart without them saying anything to us. Yeah. That the change is coming from somewhere inside us, not through their change in behavior.
And then I could feel her own pain.
Yeah.
If it was, but I could feel for her.
Yeah. You can feel her pain. You could, yeah. Because you weren't totally self-centered on your own pain anymore. So you could see her pain. Mm-hmm.
Could there be something deeper? I was reading an article that had said that Americans are all looking at they all have this victim status. Why they're angry? Why is everybody doing this to us? I mean, decades ago, it used to be, what did we do wrong
Mm-hmm.
for these situations to happen?
Mm-hmm.
So is there something deeper than we can say, well, we've really been wrong, but maybe there's things that we do ourselves that set up a climate for things to happen?
Yeah. I think that that's one way also of dealing with the situation, to overcome the sense of powerlessness, is seeing, what is our share of creating the situation in which that harm happens.
So maybe
It's possible, yeah. Yeah. If we are not so sensitive about certain things, then if we pacify our big red buttons, then other people can't push them. If we reinforce our big red buttons, then other people are going to push them. Or they'll accidentally knock into them because they're so big. Okay? Yeah. Uh-huh.
I think for me, you hit the nail on the head when you said the change has to come from within me, because honestly, someone has been mean or cruel for a very long time and they apologize, I really won't trust the apology.
Yeah. It's a very good point. Yeah. That we think that if they apologize, then it'll enable us to let go. But when we're really locked into our ill will, they could apologize up, down, and across and have it notarized, and we still won't believe it. Yeah. So the change really has to come from inside of us. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's situations where there needs to be an apology from both sides because things have happened that are not one-sided.
Yes.
And at that point, like Venerable Japa said, we're looking for connection because we might want an apology for reconciliation. But really, that's got to come from us doing our part to apologize. And getting back to your original question, what is their apology going to give to us? It goes back to your first answer of it's very related to our ego and our kind of like reputation.
Mm.
How we want them to acknowledge that we were harmed. When we acknowledge the harm we did, that's our share of it.
Yeah.
Let it drop to them.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
Exactly. And the harm we did is our responsibility. The harm they did is their responsibility. If we keep hanging on waiting for an apology, their harm was their responsibility. If we're waiting for them to accept their responsibility, but meanwhile we're not accepting ours, then that's not going to work, is it?
I was going to make a similar point, actually, just that we're not dismissing an apology, but it has to come from our side. So it's just
Yeah. The apology also has to come from us. Yeah.
And also we are often not clear about our motivation that comes with that too. So if our motivation was clear, then we don't need to worry what the other person is thinking or doing. So we're okay. If it wasn't clear, then we have to clean up our act.
Yeah. So you're saying if our apology, or even we don't verbally apologize, if our change of mind is sincere, then what the other person says or does is really of not big consequence.
I just wanted to add a little bit similar to what Venerable Yeshe said, but a little bit different also, is that not getting apology can also help us in that it can help us change our viewpoint.
Mhm.
So, example that I'm going to give is that I thought there was a doctor that was responsible for my mother's death. And so I just held all kinds of grudges for quite a while. And then I came to the forgiveness retreat. And I just did that meditation over and over and over. And I was able to generate like really a heartfelt love and compassion for him. And just like maybe things were not how I thought they were.
Mhm.
But I was really able to, I mean, I still have that. I was able to do that through the meditation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's like she said, an internal change from us. Yeah.
I find in these situations it's helpful to actually reflect on your teaching about bodhicitta, where I've heard you say it a couple times now. I have love and compassion for all sentient beings except that. So, you know, when you're waking up in the morning and having to, you know, I mean, part of my practice, I try to do that. You know, that makes it a lot easier to, you know, just reflect in the morning. And then, you know, if you are having a grudge against a particular person, you say, well, you know, they were just in a bad place. They want to be happy. They want to be free of suffering. You go through all that. So I find that very, very useful.
Mm. To repeatedly do the meditation of cultivating kindness and forgiveness for them, yeah. Yeah, we have to keep on our toes. It's not a meditation that you do once and then, okay, I forgave. It's not like your laundry, you know? You stock up your dirty laundry and then you spend one whole day doing it. Yeah. It's better that we clean our mind day by day. Yeah. Don't let it stockpile. Yeah.
So when I'm meditating on wishing happiness and its causes for someone that I care about, I tend to want to help with the causes.
To help with the...
Participate in the cause part and to try and help them to be happy. And sometimes I do that too much. Sometimes maybe I shouldn't do it at all. But where's my part in helping that person with action?
Okay. So the person who has harmed you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Or what?
Yeah. Well, I guess for the person who's suffering, so I know that's compassion. But I'm trying to have. They're unhappy, so I'm wishing them happiness and their cause.
Okay, but what's your relationship with that person?
In this particular case, my mother.
Yeah, but how are you feeling? I mean, are you
Well, I
saying
want to help her.
you want to help
I
her?
want to help her. I want to do things for her so that she's happy.
Yeah. So that's fine.
But
But
I go overboard.
yes, then that falls into what's called people pleasing. Okay? Which is taking responsibility for what's not our responsibility and saying, you're going to be happy if I have to shove it down your throat. Yeah, which sometimes we get like that, don't we? I know what's best for you. And you've got, you're closely related to me, so I have a lot of opinions about you and your life. And I know what's best for you, and you're going to be happy in the way that I think is best for you, whether you want to be happy that way or not. Is that really wishing them well? Is that really wanting to help them?
There seems to be a fine line because she likes the attention, so that does make her happy, but then I go overboard.
Yeah.
So there's a balance there.
Yeah. Yeah, because the mind is trying to control. You're not coming in with just, I want to help. It's coming in with an agenda of this is the way, this is the result that's got to come from my helping. And it's the only result that's going to come from my helping. Yeah, and okay, you like the attention, but you better do X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And then that just sets up, a state for a lot of unhappiness. I think one of the biggest things that I have to continually remind myself about is I cannot control other people, and I can barely even, the one person I can control, which is myself, I barely can do that. Yeah, but there's no way I can control another person's thought and actions, and they're coming in with all their own karma and their own habitual actions and habitual ways of thinking. Yeah? And it's really, why do I think that I'm going to be able to change the whole thing? Yeah? Because, whenever we're on that side, we have the view of, I really know what's best and for this person's life, for them to be happy. But of course, they think they know what's best for us to be happy, and they try and help us so that we can be happy in the way they want us to be happy. And we feel like they're manipulating us and trying to control us and not respecting our independence. But when we do the same to them, we don't think that that's what they're feeling. We think that they're just being stubborn and uncooperative. So do you get what I'm saying? When we're on one side of the equation, we see it one way. When we're on the other, we see it the other way. And we should be able to see that, no matter what, who's ever on that side of the equation is going to feel the same way. Okay? Yeah, so somehow, I can mind when other people are trying to control me and speak out about it. But why would they ever think I'm trying to control them, even when I am? And why should they speak about it? Because my advice is the best one for them. Okay? Do you get what I'm saying? It's like we're so stuck in our own perspective that it makes it hard on us. Yeah.
I think sometimes it's very painful to admit that we have so little control to bring happiness up. That's really what brings up, at least to me, that overly solicitous help.
Yeah. Yeah. It's because it's painful to say, this person has a lot of karma, decades of habit, they're suffering, they don't really want to change. Or even if they say they do, it's not really in them to do that. And yet, I'm gonna make it happen. Yeah. And it's sometimes, because it is painful to say, I really don't have control over this situation. And then at that time, what we have to go back to is what is going on in our mind and how can we make our mind peaceful about it. Because if we can make our mind peaceful about the situation, then we're going to stop doing a lot of the things that are bugging the other person. Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the things about, that I find when I'm really angry with somebody and this whole idea of ill will comes in, is that when I look at the way that I'm looking at that person, it's sort of like there's been one thing that they've done, or, maybe, a type of thing that they do, and I've made that the whole person.
Yep. Yep.
And so, when I look at that, it's sort of like, and that's when you always do this, or you never do this, or, all of this kind of stuff comes up. So I've just found it really useful just to kind of step back and say, okay, what are the other characteristics of this?
Mm-hmm.
What are the good things that they do? What is it that I really like about them?
Yeah.
Even if it's somebody I don't know very well, there can still be something, that, well, this person is really conscientious, or they're really polite to these people, or, something like that. And it just kind of opens up that mind a little bit.
Right. That's a very good point, because we often think that the true value of a person's life is one action they did. Yeah, that's the way we feel about people who are incarcerated. Their whole life is one action. Yeah. Now, how would we feel if our whole life were judged on the worst thing we ever did? Yeah, I mean, that was would be pretty unfair, wouldn't it? We would really scream unfair. And yet that's what we do to other people. So this thing of seeing that somebody is more than one action, and especially because we think they're one action and that action is related to us. Yeah. If they did that same action towards somebody else, we wouldn't be nearly as upset about it. And if they did that same action to somebody we didn't like, we might even be pleased about it. Yeah. So, I mean, what you're pointing out is don't just develop a hard and fast image of somebody and think that you know everybody, you know the whole complex person based on one action. Mm-hmm.
So, fortitude. How do we cultivate more fortitude? Because sometimes when I try to go to forgive or to go over those grudges and things, I become like very vulnerable, and that's not the response. It's like going to the opposite side. And
Yeah.
I don't really can perceive the how to cultivate fortitude or what it is really fortitude.
Yeah. Okay. So the fortitude is, it's a process of training our mind so that we don't have so many knee-jerk reactions, knee-jerk emotional reactions. You know, how do you say knee-jerk in Spanish? You know when you hit your knee, your foot kicks up automatically. So we have emotional reactions like that. Somebody says something, boom, we feel something. To stop and question some of those emotional reactions. Yeah. Why do I need to feel whatever it is just because somebody did this? Yeah. Why do I need to feel that? We do have a choice in what we feel, because what we feel is dependent on how we are interpreting the situation, how we look at the situation. So if we change the way we're looking at the situation, we can change the way we feel about it also. Okay? And if we do that, then in many instances, we see that there's really not much to be upset about. That whatever the person was doing was more an expression of their internal pain than it was an expression of who we are. Yeah. And this is very, good to remember, when somebody comes and verbally attacks us, and, we feel defensive, and we want to go on the offensive with them, to just stop and think, they're saying much more about their own experience of pain than they are saying about me. I just happen to be the person standing there at the moment. Mm-hmm.
I found one thing very useful for fortitude, and that is thinking through and being prepared for events that you're going to be involved with or people that you're going to come across. And I can't remember, it might have been last Thursday's teachings, we were talking about, does the suffering come from the pain or the way that you think about the pain?
Yeah.
And I've broken bones and had all these injuries and things, and usually I get upset not because it hurts, but because I sit there and go, oh man, now I got to do crutches for 3 weeks, and it's going to be a hassle to get around. And so you ruminate about all of that, and that's really where the suffering comes from, not just necessarily the pain in your noticed that when I go into situations and I mentally prepare for them,
Mm-hmm.
the ability to have fortitude increases dramatically. Whereas if I'm just on auto, and I'm driving around, or I'm in La La Land, and something happens, then I'm going to have a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
So that's how I train.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I just have a quick question. I've been thinking about the whole idea of malice.
Mhm.
So sometimes I get these just fleeting, what I call malicious thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it kind of drives me crazy. I mean, they appear to come from out of nowhere, but of course nothing comes from nothing. No, everything is simple causes, right? Okay, so I've been trying to figure out how to, trying to find some commonality between them, or just, sometimes it feels like it's old habits of how I used to be
Mm-hmm.
and react to others, but they're just like out of nowhere, and they're really terrible.
Yeah. Anybody else have that happen? Yeah. Thoughts that you really hope that nobody in the world has clairvoyance because you don't want them to know that this thought ever passed through your mind. Okay, we've all had those kind of thoughts, haven't we? Yeah, come on. Come on, we've all had them. It's like, oh, how could I think such a thing? What I find is just let that thought came out of nowhere, let it go into nowhere.
It's like discursive thought then.
Yeah, just it flashed, and I register. That I don't want to think like that, and then let it go.
And purify.
Huh?
And purify if you have the bodhisattva vows.
Yeah. And you can do purification with the aspiration, to have really helpful thoughts. But the more you focus on, I don't want to think about an elephant, the more you're going to be thinking about an elephant. Okay? So very often it's just let it go. Okay. And you can generate the opposite kind of thought deliberately and print that in your mind.
What you said about the elephant made me think for the Buddha visualization, I should try not to think about a Buddha.
Yeah. I'm not going to think about the Buddha. I'm not going to think about the Buddha. Yeah. Okay. Good. So let's dedicate. And then tomorrow morning we'll see if we can get through the remaining 3 hindrances. But these 2 are really quite big ones, aren't they?